how to make a cool looking biker style belt hanging key case with plenty of room for keys and USB memory sticks. This is a good project for beginners or for people who want to use up scraps of leather. Here are the pieces that you'll need. The size of the smaller pieces of leather is determined by the hardware that you're using. The belt hanging clasp that I have here is at 30mm in width. The D-ring is at 25mm, and the snap piece is at 30mm, just for reference. You'll need some contact cement, some pricking irons. These are at a 5mm pitch, and you'll need some waxed polyester thread at about 1mm in thickness. This is a Japanese skiving knife, a groover, an edge beveler, a creaser, which is not essential, and also some black dye. First, round off the edges of the main piece using a coin and a box cutter. Make sure the pieces of leather fit snugly in your hardware and give you an overlap of about 1 or 1.5 centimeters. Taking the groover, I'm just marking grooves on the sides of that piece of leather just for decorative purposes. This is an edge beveler, just taking the sharp edge off that leather. This is the Japanese skiving knife. This is not essential, but it gives an extra touch of professionalism. Just cutting it down to a fine point, so there'll be no thick edges once it's sewn in. And repeat the same process for the D-ring. That's a piece of 30mm in width leather that I'm using for the flap strap. I'm pressing in the top of the snap just to mark a hole for that to be set later. I've also grooved around the edge of that again to make it just look a little bit better. I'm dyeing those pieces with Phoebing's oil-based black dye. A bit of overkill on that huge sponge, but it certainly gets the job done quickly. For the decorative piece, well, it's quite obvious really. You just fold over a piece of paper the same size as your main piece of leather and mark out your design and cut it out, and that's your template. You might find it easier to use craft scissors or something like that to cut your leather. I'm going to groove around the main piece of leather there. I don't have to go all around, just where it will be visible. Again, that's just for decoration. Now I'm using a creaser here just to mark a line for the stitching. Don't have to use a creaser. You could use a compass or a pair of wing dividers, whatever you have at hand, but that gives me a nice guideline for the stitching. Now that those pieces are dry, I'm hitting it with a bit of neutral wax leather polish. You could use carnauba cream or some other conditioning agent. And I'm starting the burnishing process as well. I'm using toconol, just working it in with my fingertips, and then burnishing it with a piece of cordura, which is nylon or polyester, and a pair of old jeans material would work, some denim. And Tokonol is good for slicking things down as well. That's what I'm doing there. You could use a burnishing stick, of course. I'm applying more Tokonol to the side of the main body of the case. And then dry fitting the pieces. I want to make sure that it doesn't go in too far so that it sticks out underneath the decorative piece. That seems about right there. So using my contact cement, position it and press it down for a few moments to make sure it has a really strong bond. And repeat that process for the other pieces, and take your time doing this, because you want to get it right. And then positioning the decorative piece on top. Again, I've added some glue to the underside of that leather, and then with the fingertips just nudging it into place. You could use a modeling tool or something to press it down. So using the pricking iron, I'm walking around in that line that I marked with a creaser just before I punch through. I'm using a two-pronged pricking iron here. I can do it by hand. And when I get to the thicker pieces of leather where it's layered, I would use an awl. And then it's a matter of stitching it through, saddle stitching as always, in and out, keeping consistent. And then when you get around to the end, bury that knot. And now I can mark where the male part of the snap will sit, set that in place, and then the project is completed.